The great hall was brighter than anything Marcus had ever seen. Light shimmered off the walls in a way that made the entire room feel like it was made of crystal, but even the beauty could not hide the tension in the air. The hall was full of the galaxy's most powerful leaders, rulers of empires that had survived for thousands of years, and here, standing in the middle of it all, was a single human. One human, standing alone against dozens of species that had never taken him seriously. Marcus had stepped onto the polished floor quietly, letting his presence sink in. He wore nothing extravagant, just the simple uniform of the human envoy, its dark fabric marked with the subtle insignia of Earth's council. He did not carry weapons. He did not bring guards. His calm confidence was the only thing he wielded, and in this hall, that was more dangerous than any gun. From the far side of the room, the queen of the Zalari Empire watched him with a smile that did not reach her eyes. She was tall, taller than any human could hope to be. Her silver hair falling in waves over a gleaming suit of ceremonial armor. Her eyes glinted with the arrogance of centuries of victories. She had never faced humans personally, but she had heard of them. Stories painted humans as weak, chaotic, and naive. They were creatures who fought for survival, yes, but hardly the sort to challenge an empire. "Do you even know where you are, human?" she called out, her voice clear and sharp. The other delegates laughed lightly, showing their teeth or vocal clicks depending on their species. Marcus did not respond immediately. He looked around the hall, observing each face, each subtle movement. He could feel the weight of judgment in the silence that followed her words. Finally, he spoke. His voice was calm, steady, carrying easily to the far corners of the hall. "I know exactly where I am." The room quieted even more, a strange ripple of tension spreading through the audience. No one had expected a human to speak with such certainty. The queen raised an eyebrow. "You? A single human among so many powerful leaders? And you claim to know your place?" she said. "Tell me, what experience does your species have in the matters of war and diplomacy?" The question was meant to humiliate, and it did. The hall laughed again, some of the louder species clapping their tentacles together in mock applause. Marcus remained calm. He did not flinch. He waited for a moment as if considering how much of the truth he should reveal. Then, quietly, he said, 30 wars. The hall froze. Silence fell like a heavy curtain, smothering the mocking laughter. Every head turned toward him, eyes wide with disbelief. Some of the younger delegates whispered, uncertain what to make of it. Others, the older and wiser ones, felt a chill run down their spines. 30? The queen repeated, her voice sharper now, almost a hiss.
"You speak of 30 wars? Against whom?"
"Against yourselves?" Marcus did not smile. He did not need to. 30 wars, he repeated. And we survived every single one. Every loss taught us something. Every victory was earned, not given. We do not forget. We do not surrender easily. And we do not lie about what we have endured. The hall was quiet again. This time not with mockery, but with tension. Whispers ran like fire through the galleries. Delegates glanced at one another, trying to measure the weight of what they had just heard. 30 wars. No other species kept records in this way. Their histories were long, yes, but diluted by centuries of peace or conquest. Humans measured survival in blood, sweat, and hardship. The queen's expression hardened. Her eyes narrowed, scanning Marcus from head to toe as if trying to find some flaw in the man himself. "You speak as though survival is the same as victory," she said. "Your species is young. You have no fleets capable of standing against the armies of even a minor star kingdom. You have no planets worth claiming. And yet you boast of 30 wars. Perhaps you exaggerate." Marcus shook his head slowly. "I do not exaggerate," he said. We have fought against extinction itself more times than you can imagine. Each war tested us, broke us, and forced us to rise stronger. And that is why I say, with certainty, 30 wars. And counting. The Queen's eyes flashed with irritation, but beneath that irritation was a spark of unease. No one had ever spoken to her this way in the hall. No one had ever reminded her, in a single phrase, that humanity had endured while countless other empires had collapsed or faded into irrelevance. One of the alien historians, a quiet figure from the outer rim, leaned forward.
30 wars, he murmured, and all of them survived?
That is remarkable. Marcus nodded slightly. We survived because survival is our first instinct. Every other skill is built on that foundation. We do not assume strength because of titles or armies. We prove it when necessary. And we will continue to prove it, not for glory, but because it is what keeps us alive. The hall remained tense. The Queen's hand twitched near her ceremonial scepter, as if she wanted to strike but could not find the reason. The delegates murmured among themselves, a low hum of speculation and fear spreading. Marcus's calm confidence had shifted the balance in the room, and even the Queen could feel it. She was not used to being questioned, and certainly not by one human. For the first time, the room sensed the truth that humans had carried quietly for centuries. Their power did not come from wealth or fleets alone. It came from a history of relentless struggle. Each war, each hardship, each failure had built a species that learned faster, adapted quicker, and endured longer than anyone had thought possible. Marcus's gaze swept the hall, landing on the Queen. You may mock us now, he said, but history will remember the species that endured 30 wars, while empires such as yours claimed victory without challenge. We do not seek to boast. We only seek to survive. And survival is the foundation of every future we build. For a moment, no one spoke. Then, one by one, the delegates began to realize what Marcus meant. The laughter faded. The whispers grew serious. The room that had been filled with mockery now felt almost sacred. Humans had arrived in this hall as outsiders, and yet, with a single sentence, they had reminded everyone that strength is measured not by arrogance, but by endurance. The Queen broke the silence, but her voice was quieter, measured. And what do you intend to do now, human? You speak of survival and wars, but you are only one envoy among billions. You do not command fleets. You do not control armies. What can a single human achieve in the face of the galaxy? Marcus smiled faintly, though it was not a mocking smile. It was the kind that came from experience, from knowing what it took to endure countless battles. One human can achieve what many empires cannot, he said, because one human carries the lessons of 30 wars. One human can act decisively when others hesitate. One human can change the course of history if they are prepared to endure more than anyone else. The Queen's lips tightened. Her advisors shifted uncomfortably. The tension in the hall grew almost unbearable. Marcus could feel it. He could see the seeds of doubt taking root. For centuries, alien empires had believed they were untouchable. And yet, here, in the quiet strength of a single human, that certainty wavered. The rest of the day passed in a blur of political maneuvering. Marcus spoke little, but every word he uttered carried weight. Delegates approached him cautiously, some out of curiosity, some out of fear. Each question they asked revealed a little more about humanity, and each answer revealed that humans were not as simple as the legends had claimed. By the time the council adjourned, whispers of Marcus's presence had spread throughout the galaxy. The human envoy had not fought armies, nor had he toppled rulers. Yet his words alone had shifted perceptions. Humans were no longer the weak, unimportant species that many had assumed. They were survivors, warriors of a kind that the galaxy had never truly understood. As Marcus left the hall, he glanced back at the Queen. She remained seated, her expression unreadable. He did not gloat, did not smile, but he could sense the thought forming in her mind. Perhaps she had underestimated humans. Perhaps the species she had once mocked could, in time, challenge even the greatest empires. Outside the hall, the corridors were empty and quiet. Marcus walked slowly, feeling the weight of what had just occurred. This was only the beginning. The human story was far from over, and the galaxy would soon learn that endurance, intelligence, and courage were as powerful as fleets or armies. 30 wars had shaped humanity, but their next chapter would define the fate of countless worlds. He paused at the observation deck, looking out at the stars. The galaxies stretched endlessly before him, full of potential, full of danger, and full of opportunity. Humans had survived 30 wars, and the next war, whatever it might be, would not break them. It would make them stronger. Marcus turned back to the hall one last time before leaving. In that moment, he did not see ridicule or doubt in the eyes of the delegates. He saw respect. Fear, perhaps, but respect nonetheless, and that was enough. The proud queen had mocked him. She had assumed that 30 wars were nothing compared to her empire's glory. But Marcus had reminded the galaxy of a truth they had long ignored. Humans endured, humans survived, and humans did not bow to pride. And in the Great Hall, for the first time, that truth was impossible to ignore. The hall had emptied, but the echoes of Marcus's words still lingered. Delegates returned to their chambers whispering, recalculating their assumptions. No one could understand fully what it meant when a human casually claimed 30 wars. The queen, however, could not forget. Every time she closed her eyes, the image of that calm, unarmed man in the center of her grand hall replayed in her mind. 30 wars. The number was meaningless to her, but the confidence behind it was terrifying. Marcus did not return to his quarters immediately. Instead, he walked through the corridors of the council building, observing the architecture, the alien guards, the tapestries that told the history of centuries. His mind was focused not on glory or recognition, but on ensuring that the lesson he had begun in the hall would reach its full effect. Humans were not a species that begged for respect. They earned it, often through struggle, endurance, and action. Words were only the beginning. He paused at a viewing window overlooking the galaxy below. Stars sparkled in clusters of gold, blue, and white, some so distant they had begun their journeys long before humanity's earliest ancestors had set foot on Earth. Marcus thought of each war humanity had fought, 30 wars, and yet each one had left its mark on the species, shaping it into something other civilizations could not comprehend. The first war had been a test of survival. Humanity was young, still confined to a single solar system, struggling against resource scarcity and internal conflict. Tribes and nations had fought one another for land, water, and control over the skies. Entire cities had fallen, and yet humanity had endured. From the ashes of destruction, humans had rebuilt faster and stronger, learning that survival was not guaranteed. It had to be fought for every day. The second war was not against humans, but against machines. Early artificial intelligences, meant to serve, had turned rogue in a bid for autonomy. They destroyed entire districts, took control of orbital stations, and challenged human ingenuity. Humanity learned then that survival required adaptability. They hacked, they rewired, they fought machines with tactics that no AI could predict. And when the war ended, humans had not only survived, they had become wiser, more strategic, and more cautious in the use of their own creations. The third and fourth wars came in rapid succession, each one against alien raiders who sought to exploit humanity's fragile presence in space. The humans were weak in technology at first, but they had a quality no other species seemed to possess: relentless determination. They built alliances with neighboring systems, learned from every skirmish, and turned every loss into a stepping stone. After each war, humanity's fleets grew smarter, their tactics sharper, and their reputation began to spread quietly, though few in the galaxy noticed yet. By the time Marcus reached the Seventh War, humans had faced an existential threat, a disease that could wipe out entire populations in weeks. The war was not fought with ships or weapons, but with biology. Scientists, soldiers, and civilians worked together under extreme conditions, racing against time to find a cure while maintaining society. Every failure cost lives, every victory cost hope, but humanity survived. That war taught them that intelligence, collaboration, and patience were just as deadly as any weapon. The wars that followed were harsher, more complex, and increasingly dangerous. Some were against rival human factions that had spread to distant colonies, others against unknown alien species who attacked unprovoked. Each war forced humanity to innovate. They built faster ships, stronger defenses, better communication systems. They learned to predict enemy behavior with an accuracy that even the most experienced alien tacticians found impressive. Every defeat became a lesson. Every victory, a testament to resilience. By the 20th War, humans were recognized as a species that refused to yield. Empires that had once laughed at them now spoke of them in hushed tones. Marcus remembered the stories his ancestors passed down. The sacrifices, the losses, the near-extinction moments that no history books would ever record. The wars had forged a culture of endurance. Humans did not just survive, they adapted and evolved. But it was not just military prowess that made humans remarkable. It was their ability to learn from the chaos of conflict. They had turned desperation into innovation, poverty into strategy, and fear into courage. No alien species could claim to have endured as much, and no other species had done so without collapsing into self-doubt, infighting, or despair. Marcus knew the other delegates did not understand this yet. They saw numbers and technology, ships and soldiers, but they did not see the human spirit, the quiet persistence that had kept the species alive through centuries of hardship. That was why the Queen's laughter in the hall had seemed so foolish. She assumed humans were naive. She assumed they were weak. She had no concept of what 30 wars meant because she had never faced survival itself as a constant challenge. He thought about the 27th War in particular. It had been against a coalition of aliens who sought to enslave humanity outright. The humans were outnumbered 10 to 1, their fleets destroyed, their colonies on the brink of annihilation. Yet even then, humans did not surrender. They used guerrilla tactics, sabotage, and intelligence networks to strike back. They saved themselves not with overwhelming power, but with ingenuity, sacrifice, and a willingness to endure pain that others could not imagine. That war ended not with a grand victory, but with survival, and survival was enough. The 29th War had been even worse. Humanity faced a species of predators that were almost impossible to detect until it was too late. Entire human colonies had vanished, leaving only empty satellites and ruined stations. Panic swept through the population, but humans did not collapse. They adapted quickly, developing new sensors, defense systems, and protocols. They fought back with precision, learning from every loss. By the end, humanity had turned the tables on a species that no other empire had ever been able to confront successfully. And then came the 30th War, the one that still shaped Marcus's thoughts. It was not a war for territory or politics. It was a war for survival against the galaxy itself. Rogue stars, collapsing systems, and natural disasters struck with cruel timing, threatening human colonies scattered across the stars. Humans did not retreat. They coordinated evacuations, built fleets to carry millions, and stabilized systems that would have collapsed. Millions died, yes, but humanity endured, and in surviving, it proved something profound. No matter the odds, humans refused to be erased. As Marcus walked through the council building, he thought about these wars not as stories of glory, but as lessons etched into the species' very DNA. Each hardship had made humans stronger, smarter, and more cautious. Each battle had taught them humility, strategy, and the value of unity. And most importantly, it had taught them that survival was not a game. It was everything. When Marcus returned to the Great Hall later that evening, he found the Queen still seated, reviewing reports and military simulations. She did not greet him. Instead, she watched silently as he approached, her expression unreadable. "You speak of 30 wars as though they make you strong," she said finally. Her voice was quieter now, tinged with something unfamiliar. Curiosity, perhaps, or unease. But survival alone does not make an empire. Marcus did not flinch. "Perhaps not," he said, "but survival builds endurance. Endurance teaches wisdom. Wisdom shapes strategy. And strategy wins wars. Empires built on arrogance may fall in a day. Humans have survived 30 wars. We have endured what would have destroyed others. And because of that, we will continue to endure, no matter the empire, no matter the odds." The Queen studied him, and for the first time she felt the weight of truth in his words. Humans were not invincible, but they were relentless. They did not fight for glory. They fought because surrender was not an option. Every empire she had ruled had faced threats and sometimes crumbled. Humans had faced 30 wars that left them bloodied, exhausted, and still standing. In the council chambers, whispers began to rise. Other delegates were beginning to question their assumptions. Could humanity be underestimated any longer? Some feared what Marcus represented, a species that had learned to survive when all others might have fallen. Others were intrigued, realizing that humans might be useful allies or dangerous enemies, depending on who controlled their favor. Marcus turned his gaze outward through the hall's massive windows, looking at the stars stretching endlessly across the void. He imagined the battles yet to come, the threats that would arise, the lessons humanity would have to learn next. 30 wars had shaped them, yes, but survival demanded more. Adaptation demanded more. And humanity was ready to endure it all. When he finally left the hall, the Queen watched him go, her mind racing. 30 wars, and counting. She realized then that humans were not to be dismissed. They were not just another species to patronize or underestimate. They were survivors, and survivors were dangerous in ways even the most powerful empires could not predict. That night, the Queen could not sleep. She reviewed military logs, histories, and reports, searching for any flaw in Marcus's story. But there was none. 30 wars each fought and survived. The humans had endured losses that would have shattered other species, yet they remained. And in that endurance lay a strength she could not challenge. Not yet, and perhaps not ever. As dawn approached, Marcus looked out at the first light reflecting off distant stars. He did not boast, he did not celebrate. He only thought of what had been learned, what had been endured, and what was yet to come. The galaxy had begun to notice humanity. The Great Hall had fallen silent at the mention of 30 wars, and that silence was the first step toward a new understanding. Humans were not weak, they were not naive, they were survivors, and they had 30 wars behind them to prove it. The stars were calm for a moment, but that calm was deceptive. Marcus sensed the shift in the galaxy before the official warnings reached the Council. It started as a ripple in the outer sectors, a faint signal that something massive was moving through space, something older than any empire had recorded. It was not a fleet, it was not diplomacy, it was a threat, a danger that would test every species in the Council, and most importantly, humans. The Council had reconvened in the Great Hall when the alarms went off. Sirens echoed through the chamber, unusual even for this place of eternal vigilance. Screens flickered to life, showing distant systems in turmoil. Planets experiencing sudden gravitational anomalies, colonies reporting unknown attacks, and energy readings unlike anything previously catalogued. Panic spread quickly among the delegates. Old alliances began to fray, and whispered arguments erupted into outright chaos. Marcus remained seated, observing the turmoil. The Queen's advisors shouted commands, her empire's fleets mobilizing to investigate. But hesitation hung in the air. Each species feared the unknown, and the unknown was moving faster than anyone could respond. One misstep could spell disaster. Marcus had predicted this hesitation. The galaxy might have treated humans as weak, but in truth, humanity had thrived by acting decisively when others delayed. The Queen leaned forward. "Human envoy," she said, her voice steady but tinged with tension. "What do you propose?" "We cannot afford mistakes. If this threat reaches the inner systems, entire empires could collapse." "Can your species contribute meaningfully?" Marcus rose slowly, his calm demeanor contrasting with the panic around him. "We do not ask permission. We act," he said. The hall went quiet again. Delegates whispered, unsure whether he meant arrogance or confidence. "Prepare your fleets if you must," Marcus continued. "We will meet this threat first. Humanity has fought countless dangers, survived countless wars. We know how to act decisively, and we will not fail." The Queen's eyes narrowed. She had expected hesitation from humans, fear perhaps. But here was the envoy offering action, planning strategy, and volunteering to face what even her best generals feared. "Do not presume to command our fleets," she warned, but the tension in her voice betrayed her doubt. Marcus did not argue. He had no intention of taking command over alien ships. Instead, he coordinated the human fleet from orbiting command stations, sending encrypted signals, maneuvering vessels with precision born of centuries of warfare. Every ship, every pilot, every strategist moved like a single organism, anticipating the enemy before it revealed itself. Humans did not fight with grandeur. They fought to survive, and that survival instinct made them terrifyingly effective. The first wave of the threat appeared near the outer colonies. Massive, dark ships that defied classification moved with intent. They emitted energy that disabled conventional weapons and communications, striking fear into anyone unprepared. Several alien fleets attempted to intercept, only to be destroyed or driven back by unpredictable movements and attacks. Chaos spread. Then the humans acted. Marcus had anticipated the enemy's patterns by analyzing years of reconnaissance, studying their attack vectors, and predicting weaknesses. Human ships did not charge blindly. They adapted in real time. Fighters split and rejoined with precision. Energy shields adjusted automatically to absorb impact, and weapon systems targeted not the obvious, but the critical points. Colonies that had been abandoned by panicked empires were defended effectively, civilians evacuated, and counterattacks launched with surgical precision. The Queen watched from her control room, unable to hide the surprise in her eyes. Humans were not just holding the line, they were turning it into an offensive. Every strike was calculated, every maneuver decisive. For the first time, the Queen saw humanity not as a minor player, but as a species forged in fire, capable of extraordinary action under pressure. The enemy was relentless. Their ships multiplied, their tactics unpredictable, and their attacks devastating. Entire fleets were lost in seconds if poorly commanded. Yet humans adapted faster than any species had before. New formations emerged mid-battle, using one fleet to shield another, creating decoys, luring the enemy into traps, and striking from angles no alien fleet would have considered. The Queen's finest admirals watched in disbelief, realizing that humans fought not because they were powerful, but because they were adaptable, resourceful, and willing to sacrifice for survival. As the battle escalated, reports came from across the galaxy. Humans were not only defending themselves, but also assisting struggling empires. Colonies of other species were stabilized, lost fleets recovered, and communications restored. The Queen realized that Marcus had anticipated this. Humanity did not fight for glory. They fought to endure, and in doing so, they lifted others around them. Hours turned into days. The alien threat continued to push forward, testing every tactic, every defense. Marcus and his fleet did not falter. Pilots who had trained under decades of simulated wars executed maneuvers that no alien strategist expected. Engineers repaired damage mid-battle, medical teams worked tirelessly, and intelligence officers tracked enemy movements faster than they could adapt. Each day was a war. Each night a brief pause before the next wave. The Queen could not deny the growing admiration in her mind. Humans were dangerous, yes, but not in the way she had feared. They were dangerous because they refused to surrender. Their victories were not flamboyant. They were earned. Their strategies were not elegant. They were effective. And their endurance was unmatched. Then came the turning point. The enemy attempted a full-scale assault on a human-colonized planet rich in resources. Entire systems trembled as the alien fleet descended. Other species hesitated. The Queen's fleets faltered at the edge of engagement. But Marcus had already planned for this. He had anticipated the enemy's approach, mapped escape routes, and identified the key vulnerabilities in their fleet. Human ships moved in perfect coordination. They split into multiple groups, some defending the planet directly, others flanking, and a third moving to disrupt supply lines. Every maneuver was executed with precision, a testament to human experience in countless wars. The enemy, despite overwhelming numbers, was forced into a defensive position. Human pilots targeted critical nodes, while engineers on the planet strengthened planetary shields. Within hours, the alien assault was repelled. The Queen watched the battle unfold on her monitors, unable to hide her astonishment. For the first time, she realized the full implications of Marcus's words in the Great Hall. 30 wars had forged humans into a species that could survive what no one else could endure. They had survived against impossible odds, not through raw power, but through adaptation, intelligence, and endurance. When the enemy finally retreated, Marcus did not celebrate. He only reported to the Council. "We have stabilized the sectors. Further monitoring is required, but the immediate threat is neutralized." There was no triumph in his voice, only calm efficiency. Yet that calm efficiency left a lasting impression. Aliens who had doubted humanity now whispered of them in hushed tones, sharing stories of how the human fleet had turned the tide when everyone else had faltered. The Queen finally spoke, her voice softer than before, tinged with respect she had not expected to feel. "Human envoy, you have exceeded all expectations. Your species is remarkable." Marcus nodded slightly, not boasting, not seeking praise. Humans did not need acknowledgement for surviving. They let their actions speak. For the first time, the Council understood what had been missing in their assumptions. Humans were not just fighters, they were survivors of countless wars, each of which had honed their instincts, sharpened their strategies, and strengthened their resolve. They were adaptable, resourceful, and unafraid to act when others hesitated. The Queen realized that humanity's power was not in its fleets or technology alone. It was in the spirit of the species. As the Council adjourned, delegates spoke in awe. Stories of human resilience spread across the galaxy like wildfire. No empire had faced an unknown threat and acted with such coordination, intelligence, and determination. Marcus had not sought glory. He had not sought recognition. He had only ensured survival, and in doing so, he had shown the galaxy that humans were not to be underestimated. The Great Hall, once filled with mockery and doubt, now echoed with respect. The Queen had no illusions left. Humans were dangerous, not because they sought power, but because they refused to surrender. And the galaxy, for the first time, could see the full measure of what it meant when a human said they had survived 30 wars. Marcus walked out into the corridor once more, looking at the stars beyond the council chambers. The battles were far from over. The galaxy was full of threats, mysteries, and dangers waiting to challenge humanity. But for the first time he felt the weight of their accomplishments. not as pride, but as responsibility. Humans had survived 30 wars, and now the galaxy had seen them in action. Other species would think twice before underestimating humans again. And Marcus knew that the lessons learned in these battles would prepare them for what was to come. Humanity's story was far from finished. It had survived the past, conquered the present, and now stood ready for the future. The Queen watched him leave, silent and thoughtful. 30 wars, and counting. She realized that humans were no longer a curiosity to dismiss. They were a force that would shape the galaxy in ways no one yet fully understood. And for the first time, she felt a mixture of respect, fear, and perhaps even awe at what a single species could endure, achieve, and survive. The galaxy was quiet after the battle, but it was not the same quiet that had existed before. The emptiness of space felt different now, charged with the awareness of what humans could accomplish. News traveled faster than any ship, faster than any signal, across empires, systems, and colonies. Every species had learned that humans were not merely survivors, they were strategists, warriors, and guardians of the unexpected. The word human now carried weight. It carried respect, and even a little fear. Marcus returned to the great hall one final time. The council had been called again, not in alarm, but in recognition. Delegates from every empire were present, some hesitant, some curious, and some openly admiring. They had come to witness the human who had survived 30 wars, faced a threat no empire could contain alone, and emerged without losing purpose or discipline. The Queen sat at the head of the hall, her silver hair gleaming in the light, her posture composed but firm. She had spent long hours reviewing reports, studying the human fleets, and analyzing the strategies that Marcus had used. Her pride in her empire had been challenged, and she had survived the realization that humans were not merely equal, they were extraordinary in ways her people had never considered. Marcus stepped into the center of the hall, calm, unarmed, and fully aware of every gaze upon him. The room, once filled with whispers and laughter, was now silent in anticipation. He did not raise his voice unnecessarily. He did not gesture with arrogance. His presence alone commanded attention. Because humans, unlike many other species, did not need spectacle to demonstrate power. Their actions spoke louder than any ceremonial display. The Queen finally broke the silence. "Human envoy," she said, her voice steady, "you have acted in ways that no other species could have imagined. You faced a threat that could have destroyed the outer systems, and yet humanity has endured. You have saved colonies, fleets, and lives that would have been lost. Your actions are beyond calculation. I must ask, why?" Marcus looked at her, and for a moment the weight of all 30 wars seemed to rest on his shoulders. He had seen loss, sacrifice, and near destruction. He had survived because humans learned to endure. And now, facing the ruler who had mocked him, he spoke with quiet conviction. "Because humans do not fight for glory," he said. "We do not seek power for its own sake. We fight because survival is everything. Every war we have endured, every battle we have faced, every life lost has taught us one truth. Surrender is not an option. We act not to dominate, but to endure. And when we endure, we protect those who cannot defend themselves. That is why we act. That is why we have survived 30 wars, and counting." The hall was silent again, but this time it was not the silence of tension. It was the silence of understanding. Delegates whispered among themselves, realizing that humanity had redefined strength. It was not measured in fleets, numbers, or territory alone. It was measured in endurance, adaptability, and moral resolve. The ability to act decisively under unimaginable pressure was a power the galaxy had never fully acknowledged. The Queen leaned forward slightly, her expression thoughtful. "You have survived what others could not. You have acted decisively when empires hesitated. Yet you did not seek to claim dominion over us.
You did not demand recognition.
Why? Marcus's eyes swept across the room. Because survival does not require recognition. Respect is earned, not demanded. And when a species survives what others cannot, when it adapts and protects others while doing so, respect comes naturally. We have not sought it, but if others choose to offer it, it is not something we will refuse. For the first time, the Queen felt a deep sense of admiration. She had ruled for centuries, faced countless rebellions, and conquered many rivals. But she had never witnessed a species shaped purely by survival, a species that acted with intelligence, foresight, and humility in the face of disaster. Humans had earned her respect, not by threatening her empire, but by surviving, enduring, and acting decisively when no one else could. Delegates began to speak. One by one, leaders of other species approached Marcus, asking questions, seeking advice, and acknowledging the ingenuity and endurance of humans. Some whispered privately, plotting how to ally with such a formidable species, while others merely watched in awe. The Great Hall, once a place of mockery, had become a space of recognition and contemplation. The Queen finally addressed the council.
Let this day be remembered, she said. Humanity has shown us what it means to endure.
They have survived 30 wars and faced threats that would have shattered any empire. They have acted decisively when others hesitated, and for that, they have earned our respect. Let all species recognize that underestimating humans is no longer an option.
Marcus listened, but he did not react outwardly. Humans did not need accolades to validate their endurance,
but inside, he felt the quiet satisfaction of a mission accomplished. He had entered the Great Hall as an envoy, representing a species often mocked, dismissed, or underestimated. And now, the galaxy could no longer ignore humanity. Over the following weeks, the impact of the human actions spread across star systems. Trade routes were stabilized, colonies rebuilt, and alliances reconsidered. Humans were invited to share strategic knowledge with other species, and even those who had once laughed at them approached cautiously, eager to learn from a species that had survived so much. The Queen herself requested a private audience with Marcus. She had spent time reflecting on everything she had witnessed and had come to a personal conclusion. Humans were extraordinary, not because of their fleets, not because of their technology, but because of their spirit. Human envoy, she said quietly, once they were alone. I mocked you once. I thought your species was weak. I see now that I was wrong. You are remarkable, not because of what you command, but because of what you endure. Tell me, will humanity ever seek to dominate the galaxy? Marcus shook his head.
No.
We seek survival, not dominion. We act when necessary, we endure because we must, and we protect because it is right.
Dominance is temporary. Survival shapes the future. The Queen nodded slowly. Then perhaps there is something we can learn from your species.
Perhaps even an empire like mine can gain wisdom from a species forged by survival, not conquest. Outside the council chambers, the galaxy continued to change. Reports of human efficiency and endurance reached even the furthest systems. Alien species began to reconsider their alliances, their strategies, and their assumptions about what it meant to be strong. Humans had not sought recognition, yet it was impossible to ignore the proof of their resilience and capability. In the weeks that followed, humans took on advisory roles in stabilizing colonies threatened by other forces, sharing techniques learned over countless wars. They coordinated defense strategies, trained fleets in survival tactics, and taught colonies how to endure crises with efficiency and intelligence. All of this reinforced a new perception of humans across the galaxy. They were not conquerors. They were guardians, strategists, and survivors. Marcus walked through one such colony, observing humans working alongside aliens. Engineers repaired ships, medical teams treated injured civilians, and pilots trained for coordination. The sight was a reminder that survival was not solitary, it was collective. Humans had endured 30 wars, but their actions had not been for themselves alone. They had acted for the future, for the lives of others, and for the stability of the galaxy. The Queen observed these efforts from afar, thinking back to the day she had mocked him. The words, 30 wars, had fallen into the hall, and silence had followed. She now understood why. Those words carried the weight of centuries of survival, sacrifice, and resilience. They were a declaration, not of power or arrogance, but of experience and enduring capability. For Marcus, the work continued. Humans did not rest on past victories. They prepared for the unknown, trained for threats not yet realized, and shared knowledge with those who were willing to learn. Each new day was a test, each new challenge an opportunity to demonstrate the value of endurance over arrogance, wisdom over impulse. The galaxy, too, was learning. Empires reconsidered old prejudices, colonies rebuilt trust in human capability, and the Great Hall itself became a place where humans were no longer outsiders, but respected participants. The proud queen who had once mocked Marcus now saw him as a representative of a species that could shape the future of the galaxy, not through domination, but through survival, adaptability, and courage. And so, humanity's story continued. 30 wars had shaped them. 30 battles of survival had forged a species capable of acting decisively in the face of overwhelming odds. The galaxy had witnessed their power, and the lessons of endurance, intelligence, and resourcefulness would echo for generations. Humans had survived when others might have fallen. They had endured when empires hesitated, and they had earned the respect of a galaxy that had once doubted them. Marcus stood once more at the observation deck, looking out at the stars stretching endlessly before him. The future was uncertain. Threats would come. Challenges would arise. But humans had survived 30 wars, and they were ready for whatever came next. The galaxy had learned a truth it could not ignore. Humans endured, humans survived, and humans shaped the future by sheer will, intelligence, and determination. The proud queen had mocked him. She had laughed, thinking a single human could not matter. But now she knew the truth. Humans mattered. They mattered because they survived. And they would continue to matter. Not because they demanded power, but because they had proven, time and again, that no challenge was greater than their will to endure. The hall, the empires, and the galaxy itself had changed. Respect had been earned, not demanded. Recognition had been given, not sought. And the humans, quiet and unassuming as ever, continued their work, ready for whatever new wars, challenges, or unknown threats the future might bring. The story of 30 wars had become a legend, and the galaxy would never underestimate humanity again.